Good morning, good afternoon or evening, and welcome to the EGU podcast, bringing you experts on mindset, business, energy, and all things spiritual. I am Michelle Reinhardt, creator of the gorgeous online community Entrepreneurs Globally Unite for awakening and emerging spiritual entrepreneurs. And today I have a very special story from an extraordinary man, a military veteran turned peaceful warrior. I'm thrilled to welcome to the show Keith Abraham. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you, Michelle. Very kind. Thanks.
You're welcome. We're new friends, and I'm looking forward to this story. I didn't want to quiz you too much before we spoke because I want to hear it firsthand too.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to spread the message.
Fantastic. If you don't mind, I'll just share a bit of your bio with our guests first.
Of course.
Perfect. So Keith is a teacher of Tai Chi and spiritual growth. He also offers thought-provoking new ideas about masculinity and courage. His experiences fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan led him to question the basis for conflict and how we perceive masculinity and courage. Swapping the intensity of war for that of the corporate world, Keith joined JPMorgan and in the midst of his high-pressure environment discovered meditation and the internal martial art of Tai Chi. These helped him process and redefine his experiences, whilst gradually changing his reactions to emotions and stress. Now, through his blog, podcast, ebook, and videos, Keith aims to help others learn greater self-mastery by discussing topics like forgiveness, how appearances are deceptive, compassion, the fulfillment of dreams, and the power of vulnerability and sensitivity. Wow. You're certainly speaking my language, Keith. I would love to hear a little bit about your story. How did you get to where you are now?
Well, the more I've reflected on that question, the more I understand that I've always been on that journey, even though I was very blind and deaf to it for the majority of my life. I'm still very young in this life experience, this new experience that I'm living. It only really began to manifest very clearly within the last 4 or 5 years. So I'm not a guy that has been living this life for very long at all. It was a very profound, sharp, defined moment in my adult life, not one that I brought with me through childhood.
I didn't either, Keith. It's certainly not something that came with me from childhood either. So this is really good because most of our guests have had this inkling of spirituality from the get-go. So this is, please continue.
So Afghanistan clearly was one of those big catalysts. I've written about that recently as well. It certainly was a catalyst, it forced me to ask so many questions about the wider world, for sure, social, political movements, causes and consequences. But ultimately, that can seem quite overwhelming when you start to try and address those situations just as an individual, and certainly just for me as a soldier. And it became apparent to me that I really just had to change myself. That's all I was responsible for. That's really all I could do, because anything else seemed far, far beyond my reach. So it was really the conflict and the traumatic experiences of fighting out there that forced these questions upon me. And the more I asked myself those questions, the more I asked for help. And I'm blessed to have had and attracted a group of people that saw me through that process. But it wasn't only Afghanistan, it was the breakdown of long-term relationships as well. We're all very familiar with heartache. I had a very bitter divorce, and another long-term relationship broke down under difficult circumstances, all within the same 2-year period. So like I said just a minute ago, it was very intense, defined period of time. And I just began to look at what I could change. And that was me. It was only me.
Yeah.
Nothing else, everything else seemed outside of my sphere of influence, if you want.
Yeah.
So those people that I attracted into my life, they began introducing new tools for me to help me progress and answer those questions that I'd been asking. And Tai Chi was one of them.
Yes.
Meditation, actual just seated meditation is another. And through those tools, it brought me insight and I would say wisdom as well, for what you receive in those moments when you're practicing Tai Chi or Qigong or meditation or whatever your tool is, be it yoga or something like that. The wisdom that we receive in those moments can be profound, and that's now what I'm just trying to share as widely as possible, because I see that while my traumas and my heartaches are no more or less painful than anyone else's, it's what I see has value is that the transition that I made, because I've mapped that out now. I see how I made the transition, and that has value.
Yeah, that's extraordinary. Do you actually have that as in a step-by-step process now, Keith, as a course?
Yeah, so not as a course. I do take individual clients and guide them through difficult transitions or just mentor them through life experiences. But it's not an online course that's available just yet. It will be soon. And that will be spread widely as well, of course. But at the moment, I'm just dealing with individuals, which is valuable for me and for them. But the mapping of the transition is personal for each person, obviously, but
of course,
there are still waypoints that we can move through, and they're valuable on a generic level. So it's a lovely thing to be able to introduce to people.
It sounds like it. So I'm guessing, Keith, that you do stress very differently these days to what you did in your JPMorgan days. Would I be right?
Yeah. So I kind of managed during my JPMorgan days, I managed stress in a very similar way to how I managed stress during my military days.
Okay.
But it was during that time that I had I began to make the clear transition as well. So I did start that process while I was at JPMorgan. But I definitely, I've experienced really acute anxiety, moved through depression.
Wow.
And that's whilst working in those environments, but also just general life experiences that we all share. But I reacted to those with fear and anger, and in my younger days with violence. I don't feel like I'm any different. I'm just aware that now I react. I choose to act differently in the face of these experiences, and I differentiate them. There's no longer necessarily a positive or a negative spin on it. Often it's just, okay, this is a life experience that is going to lead me somewhere valuable. And saying that, this is a really negative experience, this is really negative, I don't see it that way so much anymore. Of course, it's still painful. I'm not debating that. It can still be very painful, but I don't see the pain as negative anymore. I just see it as another building block, another stepping stone to take me further along my journey. And I've learned to become grateful for it. which is one of the steps of the transition, gratitude.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I love what you're talking about here, because it's coming back to that point of neutrality, where it's not right or wrong, it's not good or bad, it just is. And if we can bring ourselves to that present moment and really be 100% present as often as we can without letting our mind run away from us, that's when we start to really tune in and see the magic in our lives.
Yeah. And it's magic. It's magic. Once you begin to see it, it's undeniable, really, that what you're experiencing is magical. What you're experiencing really is magical. And then it becomes so much easier to feel gratitude for it. But there are steps that come before that we have to learn and embrace and accept. But yeah, really, it's just all about gratitude for how magnificent this all is, how beautiful it all is.
Absolutely. Keith, I'm going to prod you a little bit deeper in there and ask if you'd mind sharing those steps with us.
Yeah, of course. So I intuitively want to say, it's really quite easy, but I'm aware, I'm clearly aware that it's actually not that easy. So if I take you from my personal experience, how I mapped my own experience.
Yeah, please.
The first understanding that I had to accept was compassion. Nothing really seemed to kickstart or fire off before I really understood compassion. So compassion for myself.
Yes.
But actually my experience was that I was feeling compassion for others. And it was the people I was fighting in Afghanistan.
Oh, wow.
Because I just had to ask, who are these guys that I'm shooting at and that are killing my friends, and we're involved in killing each other on a daily basis. Who are these people? And really, the only answer is that we're exactly the same. I'm a guy that was inclined to join my national military because I thought that was the best way that I could change the world for better, from my perspective. And the only answer that I took from Afghanistan, from who are those guys that I'm fighting, is that they are young men that joined their national combat units. They didn't have an organized national military, but that they just thought that they were doing what they thought was best to change the world for better from their perspective. So they were me and I am them, and we're just involved in shooting each other, which is crazy, really.
Yeah,
There's no answer.
It's barbaric, isn't it?
Yeah. So once I understood that, compassion led me to forgiveness. So forgiveness of myself for making mistakes, perceived mistakes. I don't see them as mistakes anymore.
No. Isn't that funny how that changes?
Yeah, that's another value, but there are no mistakes.
There aren't.
You can delay yourself along your journey, perhaps, but really, they have to.
It's just the lesson that needs to be learned.
Yeah. As long as we do learn them, it's all good.
Eventually.
Eventually, however long it takes.
That's
it took me until I was at least 29 to figure this stuff out.
Oh, you did it the easy way. You were quick.
Okay.
It took me at least 50.
Well, you're there anyway.
Still learning. Always will be.
Of course. So having compassion led me to this forgiveness of myself for my own perceived mistakes. But then it helped me to forgive the others in my life that had seemingly caused me pain and suffering. Well, they had caused me pain and suffering. But I could forgive them for that because we're all just doing the best that we can by the light we can see by. And we make mistakes and we're fallible, and that's who we are. It's our human, we're perfect but fallible, so
we are.
It all becomes understandable and forgivable. It doesn't necessarily, I'm not trying to say that malicious behavior doesn't have its consequences and that there are ways that we need to keep people safe from malicious behavior. Of course, I'm not denying that in any way, but we can still forgive. And so I went from compassion through to forgiveness. And once you're able to forgive yourself and others, you begin to feel gratitude, which we already touched on. But then with gratitude, you're thankful for those people that challenged you. Even if there were incredibly painful experiences, you begin to say, well, without that, I wouldn't be me. And I'm magnificent. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for giving me that experience that I can learn from. Be it the traumas of Afghanistan on the battlefield, or just the divorces and the heartache and the anxiety and the depression. Whatever your experiences are, they're all leading you, or they have all led you to this point. And it's perfect. And that's where gratitude brings us to understand that, wow, it's perfect. It's magical, as we said.
Absolutely. I like to say, Keith, that life is happening to us, or it's happening for us, not to us.
Yeah.
So, everything that we've experienced, and even on a day-to-day thing when things perhaps don't go quite as we'd planned, when you're able to step back and look at these steps and look at the gift that is there, and it may not be what you wanted, but it could be better.
Yeah. It's from while I was in the military, I took a really, really important lesson. They teach us as commanders, and I was only a low-level commander, but it's across the military wide. They taught us a thing called a Condor moment, as in the bird.
Oh, yeah.
And so under extreme situations, so while you're being shot at, they would teach you to take a Condor moment. And a Condor moment simply involves taking a big deep breath and soaring high up above the situation and observing what's going on around you objectively without being immersed in the subjective experience. So just for a few moments, just soar above your situation and try to view it as objectively as you can. And then you can make objective decisions instead of subjective decisions that are influenced probably quite heavily by emotions or fear, really. Fear is what you don't want to act from. You don't want to act from a place of fear. And those Condor moments helped me and still help me today to act from a place of love and not from fear. More often than not, of course. There are days, this is life, but more often than not, these Condor moments help me act from a place of love instead of fear. And that is
beautiful.
Gold.
That really is gold. In fact, as you're explaining that, my mind went straight to a meditation. That's straight up for support, assistance, guidance, love, isn't it? Yeah.
This is all, the message is all being spread far and wide. It's what I'm saying isn't new, far from it. This is ancient knowledge that has been spread down through our generations and from other ways of receiving messages. But I'm here, another person stepping up to just try and share this message further, wider. And this transition has value. I'm aware of it, and I'm very happy to be spreading it as well. It's a great opportunity. Yeah,
it is. I'm certainly delighted to be sitting here discussing it with you, Keith. You mentioned 4 to 5 years through that transitional stage. So did you actually have a moment that was a defining moment for you, or has it been that long a process?
Yeah, I couldn't say. There were big chunks. But there's not one. There's definitely not one moment. There were experiences that became very big catalysts, big kicks But really it was gentle. It was fast. It was fast because it felt fast, even though it took a few years. For where I was, I was a very angry, violent young man, very frustrated, often lost, didn't know where to turn. I had no anchor. I was just flying around in a rage most of the time. And I think really my experiences just became so intense. The roller coaster was dipping so low and rising so high that it probably just became a little bit overwhelming, and I just needed these catalysts to flatten it out. And thankfully I got them. And again, we revert to gratitude. I got them. Afghanistan, the divorce, the other relationships, they all, because they were so painful at the time, they became the catalyst for their exact opposite, which was compassion, forgiveness, gratitude, and ultimately love and peace.
And there is a stage I can sense here that you reached a fork in the road. You had to choose whether you go to the light or you go to the dark.
Yeah, to be honest, it didn't feel like a choice.
No, okay, but it does to some. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, not denying that. But that was taken from me for whatever reason. It didn't feel like a choice. It felt as though someone had taken hold of my head and moved my focus to the other fork, because I was clearly going down the other road anyway.
Yeah.
And something just said, no, now this is the way.
Okay.
And it was, I'm very grateful for that as well, because as I say, it took the responsibility from me. So it's almost easier really that way. It just felt like I had to. There was no choice.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because there are lots of, sadly, one of my very close friends recently lost a partner. He took his life. And, there is a lot of sadness, a lot of deep debt, a lot of really bad things that are happening to a lot of people. And I'm really, really glad that you saw that. I had a similar moment where I've had those thoughts myself. And thank goodness, same sort of thing to me. I kind of figured it was time to either dig my heels in and really get serious and begin the journey of my life. So it's special in that. Keith, when you made that decision, as your head was turned and you were put on a different road, what was the catalyst? What was you've got your 3 steps there, your compassion, forgiveness and gratitude. I'm guessing it was your mindset that clicked in next.
Yeah, I think the mind is the great tool, but it's also the problem.
How true is that?
The way that I would discuss this now, the way that I see it now, is that the ego mind has played. It was the master. It was my master for my entire life up until this transition point. And now really we have to understand that our ego is just a tool, and that we're our master. We are the master. The ego is the tool, and they're separate. They're part of the same,
Yeah,
we
still
can't.
us.
It's still us. The ego is part of us, and it can't be destroyed, and shouldn't be.
No.
But it's the tool. It's not the master, and we need to distinguish between master and tool, and put the ego back in its rightful place as tool, so that we use it as a tool, and then when we don't need it, it sits idle. Then when we need it again, we bring it out and we employ it, just as a pen or a hammer or anything, whatever is. If the task requires ego, and there are tasks that require ego.
What would you? Sorry, can I ask what tasks you would determine would require the ego?
Of course. So from a personal perspective, let's say for my life in the military, involved really, really challenging physical exercises. Very, very demanding. We were at a stage of Olympian fitness,
Wow.
very, very strong and fit. And there are some of those experiences that are so hard that you can't, well, I couldn't finish them unless I employed my ego.
Okay.
I just said to my ego, you're going to have to take over here and get me through this, because then my ego is the guy that doesn't want to fail and that can't seem to be embarrassed by not completing this arduous task. And if I left it to myself, I just wasn't strong enough for that particular task. So I asked, come along, join me, get me through this.
Yeah.
And at the end, thanks very much. We've achieved the goal. Excellent. I feel great now.
Get back in your box.
Yeah, exactly. We're speaking the same language.
We certainly are. Absolutely. No, I'm glad to hear you say that, because I believe the ego absolutely has a place, and to the point where we can actually retrain it to be on our side as we move through our awakening as well, and we can train it to be looking for the magic as opposed to the ways to keep it small.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but the mind is, as you said, it can be good and it can be bad. It's certainly one to start paying attention to if anyone's listening and has that monkey chatter, that busy head. And did you come across a specific style of meditation that helped you with that, Keith?
It was Tai Chi, actually.
Tai Chi, yeah.
Tai Chi did that. I wasn't in a place where I could easily sit still for long at all. And Tai Chi provided me with a tool where I could keep moving, but it's still profoundly meditative with that intention.
Yes.
It can be anything you want, but my intention was, I need to focus on this and have it still my mind. And it did that. It was profound. And it still is to this day. I love my teaching. I'm helping a lot of people with the movement as well. There are so many forms of meditation. You don't have to sit there, or you don't have to lay there or in full lotus or chanting Om. It doesn't have to be that. It can. It doesn't have to be. It can be walking in the woods. It can be stood perfectly still. It could be Tai Chi, yoga, anything. So long as you're focusing your mind on what you're doing instead of the mind itself, then you're meditating. That's from my perspective, you're meditating if that's what you're doing.
I agree.
Focusing as much as possible on your activity. That is meditation.
I agree completely, and I love to hear you say that, because a lot of people have tried it and failed because they can't sit still, and they're not. In fact, there's research these days about how so many years of sitting can be damaging for your back anyway. So
absolutely. When I spoke to I've studied under several masters in China, and I spoke to one guy, very, very helpful in my process. He would always say that so this is him speaking, you, i.e. us Westerners, you sit all day in your offices typing at your computers for 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and then you hear about this cool trend called meditation, and then you think, I should give that a go. And go home and sit for another hour, and your body is screaming
for movement. Yes,
I need to move. Whereas I totally agree with that. That is truth as far as I'm concerned. And for me, my challenge is that because I move so much and my life has been so physical, now I do need to be still physically. I need to be still. That's my challenge. Whereas I think the majority of the challenge is to move. You need to move, because you can't sit at a desk all day and then ask your body to sit more. It's just not going to work. which is why people find it so hard. And it is hard, really hard.
I can now. I crave it now. But for years, I have a mountain that I take off to, and it's a 90-minute round trip, and that's
beautiful.
It is. It's absolutely beautiful. I get my exercise cardiovascular as well because I'm going uphill. And it's just that's my little slice of heaven. And I feel completely different after I've done that. I used to do that jogging. I used to run for miles and miles and miles. So people just need to find that sweet spot for themselves.
Yep. Totally.
And
just
no one can
start. No one's going to. We're all here to help and offer our own experiences and our own tools. But really, I think what I've begun to understand is that people already know what their thing is. They already know. They just don't think that it's appropriate, but it is.
That's a super point.
Do it. If it's jogging, do it. If it's rowing, because that's obviously a very repetitive medical movement in itself, rowing, do it. If it's washing the dishes, do it. But if you can't sit still, don't force yourself, because it's the forcing that is that's your enemy, really. You're not going to reach the point that you think you will if you're forcing it.
So true. I had the image of a petulant child come to mind then. When you're trying to force them to do something that they don't want to do, they will play up. And that you could label your ego if you want to. It's going to give you a hard time to get what it wants. So give it what it wants. Give it what you feel happiest doing. In itself will change things.
Yeah. Just listen to your body. The body is wise. Listen to your body. Just the mind is busy taking you off all different places, but the body knows what you need to be doing. So you just do what your body wants. At the same point, though, there's a trend currently of really punishing ourselves in gyms and just spending an hour of punishing our bodies just because we can only do it once or twice a week, this physical exercise. So we spend that hour really going at it. And that isn't what I'm talking about here.
No.
That's punishment of your body. What we want is gentle, regular movement, not this just, the only word is punishment.
It is.
These sessions. You know, your body will remember. So years down the line, if you're just smashing your body every week, that's going to have consequences, and it's not going to be the consequences that you think. No,
that's very true. Very true.
So they need to be respectful.
Oh, agreed. Sorry, I cut you off then.
No, that's fine.
Keith, do you have a core message to share with people?
Yeah, I have a few core messages that I like to share mostly. It's really, firstly, we spoke about it before, is the distinguishing between the ego and yourself, and the ego in its rightful place as tool, and yourself as its rightful place as master. But then I also want to talk about redefining these traditional values of masculinity. Because of my background, I'm well aware of overt masculinity, and it's self-limiting, really. I've been that alpha male.
Yeah.
And it's self-limiting. So I want to, or I do now, talk often about how we begin to redefine masculinity. And that always leads me into the power of vulnerability, which is another message.
Okay. Yeah.
And that it's through vulnerability that we begin to heal ourselves and then others. And then living courageously as well. And just because I'm a military veteran I'm not talking about the bravery of the battlefield or anything like that. It's living courageously for me would involve not acting from a place of fear. and instead understanding that yes, it may be scary and you may be scared of this experience, but choose to act from a place of self-love instead of fear. Don't let your fears limit you and influence your decision-making process. It happens all too easily, and it's a difficult skill to learn, but it can be done. I'm proof of it. Well, there's millions of us where there's proof of it, but this is me talking. I know it can be done personally. It's a real challenge to look at what you're scared of, to look at yourself as scared, to see yourself as scared, but then forgive yourself for that and move on and act from a place of love. Those are my messages. Those are my core messages, at least. And through those other points, compassion, forgiveness, and gratitude, you can begin to really change your whole reality. And you've begun to master your mind as well. And that's the trick. Mastering the mind.
It is. That's one of my core soul streams is self-mastery. And it's been my journey my whole life to, that, as you said straight up about us being responsible for ourselves and taking that responsibility very gently and very lovingly. And it's so important. And I love that you use the word courage, because it takes courage to follow your heart, to follow your dreams, and to step out and do what you know you need to do, not what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, it's terrifying, but you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yeah.
That's magnificent. So, Keith, do you work with men and women or predominantly men?
No, men and women.
Men and women?
The process is the same.
Yep.
I feel that I can offer equal benefit to all genders. This isn't based around gender, even though I am particularly interested in this redefining of
the masculinity. Yeah.
Bringing these guys back from that overt alpha male setting. You don't need to be there. You don't need to sit there. There's something beyond that. You're only limiting yourself.
Yes.
So yes, I do have a clear interest in that, but the process is the same for all of us. We're all the same.
Fantastic. And how do people find you, Keith, for those beautiful souls sitting there listening that are tingling with recognition and really wanting to know how to get the best out of themselves? How can they find you?
Well, you can find me on my website, which is daofofawakening.com. You can email me at info@daofofawakening.com. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, SoundCloud, YouTube. I'm out there. So just have a little search, have a little read and a listen. And if you want, feel free to get in touch. I'd love to hear people's own experiences, because I learn from that as well as much as anyone. I look forward to hearing from you all.
Thank you, Keith. And failing all of those connections, guys and girls, Keith is a member in our global community as well at Entrepreneurs Globally Unite. So into the show notes, you'll have all the links that you need, and you can find him. If you can't find him personally, you can find him via me, and I can connect you as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome, Keith. So just to recap, people, we've got 3 steps really, beginning with compassion for self and for others, moving into forgiveness again for self and for others, and that will lead you into the most beautiful space of gratitude. And that's where you start to notice that life is happening for you, not to you, and things open up, and it's quite an extraordinary journey from that point on. And then you start to realize how special it has been all the way along, but we were probably just a little bit too thick to see it.
That is exactly the process.
Yeah, that's it. So, Keith, a couple of big thanks to you for the commitment for the men that you're helping, the ex-servicemen that are able to find someone that can bring them back and to that and beyond what they even possibly ever were.
Oh, it's a privilege. It's a blessing, privilege, honestly. I feel blessed. That's great.
Well, thank you for stepping up and taking that flag, that banner, because certainly we'll be changing some lives. No question about it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So, guys and girls, if you're at the end of the show with us, thank you for staying with us. Thank you for enjoying our conversation. Thank you for lending your heart to us as well. And please leave a comment. Let us know how you enjoyed the show. Let us know if there's anything you'd like to contribute. We are all in this together, and we are by no means the experts. Be sure to subscribe to the show so that you don't miss an episode. And that's it from us for episode 40 on the EGU podcast. Keith Abraham, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Thank you. Thank you so
My
much.
pleasure. Absolute pleasure. So goodbye, guys and girls. Shine bright. Remember, that's why you're here. And we'll see you next week. Bye.